Okay, hello Cloud Gurus and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture we're going to do VPC Lab Part 2, and essentially we're going to take our EC2 instance that's in our private subnet and we're going to try and access it. We're going to turn it basically into a database server. So this is a lab and you will need to log into the AWS console. Okay, so here I am in the AWS console. I've got my private server in here. Maybe we'll just rename it to my MySQL server, something like that, so we know what it is we're going to do. Right now, it is not internet accessible, so we need to go in and change that. If we go over to our security groups, we associated it with our default security group. It might be easier to sort by your VPC ID, by the way, just to make it easier. So we associated it with this one. What I'm going to go ahead and do is create a new security group. I'm going to call this my RDS SG, something like that. And I'm going to add it to my A Cloud Guru VPC. I'm going to add some rules. So I'm going to allow SSH access. I'm going to allow MySQL access. So let's see if I can find MySQL Aurora. Going to allow HTTP and HTTPS, and we'll see why in a second. So HTTP and HTTPS in here. Then I'm going to add another rule. And I'm going to allow ICMP. This will allow me to ping my instances in my private security group or private subnet from my public subnet. So in here, we need to either enter our CIDR, IP, or security group. So obviously, we're going to want to have the CIDR address range to our public subnet. So it's 10.0.1.0 and then /24. And so I'm just going to copy and paste that into my clipboard and paste it all in here. Paste and paste and paste, and there we go. That's good to go. Oh, we also need a description, so we just need to put our description in here, and we'll go ahead and hit create. That has now created our RDS security group. What we now need to do is just go back over to EC2 and move our instance into that security group. So we've got my MySQL server. And we're just going to click in here and go over to networking and go change security groups. And we're going to change over to my RDS security group and go ahead and assign the security groups. So that is now has assigned our security group. What I want to do is SSH into this public IP address. I'm then going to see if I can ping my private server, and then I'm going to SSH over to my private server from my public server. So I am going to be a bit naughty. I'm going to load the private key that I need to use in order to connect into my private instance. I'm going to save that on the public server. You should never, ever, ever, ever do that in real life. I'm just doing this as a demo so that you can see. You should use a Bastion. A Bastion host basically acts as a gateway between your public servers and your private servers, but we're not going to cover that off just yet. So what we need to do now is SSH into our EC2 instance. Okay, so I'm in my EC2 instance. What I want to do is I want to see if I can ping my private instance. So its public IP address was 10.0.2. I think it was 143. And there we go, it is pinging. So I can now successfully communicate over to my private instance. Let's see if I can actually connect to it. So I'm going to clear the screen. In order to connect, I'm going to need to create a private key file. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over and open up my private key. So I've got my private key in here. I'm just going to copy it over to my clipboard and go back over to terminal. I'm going to do nano and call it my pvk.pem. I'm just going to paste it in here. So pasted it in, hit Control X, yes, and then enter. And then I'm going to go ahead and chmod this to 400 my pvk.pem. And again, this is a really stupid idea. I'm just literally showing you guys this as a demo. You would never, ever, ever do this in production. So I've I've changed the permissions. And so now what we want to do is we want to go SSH EC2, then -user. And then I want to go at, and then the private IP address. So it's 10.0.2.143, then -i, and then the name of the key, which was my pvk.pem. And if we have any luck, it says, do we want to connect? Say yes, and there we go. I am now on the EC2 instance inside my inside my private subnet. So I'm going to elevate my privileges to root, and I'm going to clear the screen. So what do you think would happen if I did a yum update? Yum update minus yes. nothing is going to happen. It's going to time out because I'm in a private subnet and I have no route out to the internet. So that's what we're going to cover in the next lecture, is how do we get around this? How do we provide internet accessibility to this EC2 instance? Because we need to go in and install MySQL potentially. And we need to patch the operating system. How do we do this without putting it into a public subnet? So if you've got the time, join me in the next lecture. Thank you.